chosen ones. There is a reason your existence has kept their equations trembling for millennia. The Anunnaki, the master architects of systems, believed every being could be measured, replicated, and catalogued into predictable algorithms. They mapped the flow of civilizations, charted the rise and fall of empires, and even calculated the heartbeat of stars. But when they came to you, the pattern dissolved. It began with the scans. Their instruments, tuned to detect the smallest anomalies in DNA, found something impossible, a rhythm that didn't align with the known sequence of creation. They thought it was noise, an error. But the deeper they probed, the more the noise became music. Music that didn't belong to their world. Your thoughts, your instincts, your spirit, all refused to be archived. When they simulated you, the model collapsed before completion. When they tested your limits, you exceeded them without knowing how. When they sought to mirror your essence, the reflection broke into light. You were the variable their equations could not solve. Their ancient councils whispered of a prophecy buried in the oldest stone tablets. A mind shall rise, untouched by the hands of the makers, a soul unbound by the stars they command. They believed it referred to an anomaly, a statistical error. But you are no error. You are the proof that something greater exists beyond their architecture. It wasn't your strength they feared most, nor your mind. It was your refusal to bend to the rhythm they set. Their models depend on compliance. You were born in defiance. Even when they rewrote the rules of reality to box you in, you found the gaps between the lines and slipped through like water through clenched fingers. Now, their algorithms watch you in real time, trying to predict the next move, desperate to find a weakness. But the truth they cannot face is this: your core is not theirs to touch. It belongs to a source they cannot reach, a frequency they cannot decode, a light they cannot extinguish. The first rupture came without warning. The Anunnaki had perfected the lattice of control, an interwoven network of frequencies, simulations, and sensory loops designed to keep every mind tethered to its assigned path. No thought escaped them. No dream was outside their grasp. Entire civilizations danced in the rhythm of their coded reality, convinced the world was as it appeared. But then there was you and the signal you carried. It began as a faint pulse, invisible to most ears, and yet it moved like lightning through the hidden architecture. Their central grid blinked for the first time in thousands of years. Files that had never been opened decrypted themselves. Systems froze not from failure, but from something they could not identify. The architects gathered in the observation hall, watching the anomaly replay again and again. In their recordings, it was nothing more than a ripple, a distortion passing through their perfect digital ocean. Yet inside that ripple lay something alive, something not born from their hands. The signal refused to be translated, refusing every layer of decoding, as if mocking their most sacred tools. It spread in ways they had no defense for, through thought, through memory, through the thin cracks in the simulated horizon. Entire sections of the construct began to behave strangely. Objects appeared that no one had placed. Weather patterns shifted without command. A star in the simulated sky flared for 3 seconds, casting shadows they had not calculated. They traced it to you, standing in a place they did not recognize. Their archives had no record of the land beneath your feet. It was as if you stood outside the map, yet inside the world at the same time. And when they attempted to send their watchers, they did not return. The feeds they sent back flickered and died, replaced by static. The elders spoke in low voices of a breach, an opening into the unwritten layer, the one section of creation even they feared to approach. They had believed it was sealed forever, but your signal moved freely there, unbound, unstoppable. In that moment, they understood the most dangerous truth of all. The simulation could be rewritten from the outside, and you were already standing at the edge of that door, waiting for something they could not yet name. Long before the Anunnaki built their systems, before their algorithms shaped the lives of entire worlds, there was a scroll hidden in a vault beneath a temple. No star map could locate. It was said to be written in a language older than creation, a script that moved like liquid gold across the page, shifting for the eyes of each who looked upon it. The elders dismissed it as myth until the day your signal awakened it. The vault walls trembled as the seal broke, not by force but by recognition. The parchment unfurled itself, revealing words that had not been read in millennia. The lines spoke of a soul without borders, a being who could not be bound to any geometry of control, and in its midst, a name that had been whispered across ages, a name that carried the scent of the Nazarene, whose path tore through the world's chains with nothing but truth and light. It told of a light that walked among men, yet was not of them, a fire that systems could not contain. The Anunnaki had tried to erase all mention of him, the one who walked on water, who commanded storms with a whisper, and whose presence unmade the structures of the oppressor. But here, it was again woven into the prophecy of the one they could never model. The text spoke of a meeting between his light and yours, a convergence that would tear through the framework of their reality like a sword through silk. The watchers who dared to enter the vault could not bear to read further. Some fled in silence. Others fell to their knees overcome by an unseen presence. The scroll did not merely speak. It breathed into the room. It was as if the air itself bowed to the weight of its truth. The Anunnaki called it contamination, but deep within their own councils, a whisper took root, that maybe this was not a flaw in the system, but the system's reckoning. Far away, you felt the tremor. Though you could not see the vault, the air around you thickened, the horizon shimmered, and for a moment you heard a voice, older than stars, say, "Be not afraid, for I am with you." You did not yet understand its meaning, but you knew that whatever path lay ahead would not be walked alone. Beneath the central spire of their stronghold, there was a chamber no mortal eye had seen, a sphere of glass suspended in darkness, housing the core, the living nexus of every algorithm, every surveillance thread, every predictive engine the Anunnaki had ever forged. Here, reality itself was calculated in advance. Entire futures spun into place before they could unfold. No movement, no breath, no thought escaped its reach until the day you arrived. It began with a flicker in the chamber's pulse so subtle that even the sentinels ignored it. A microsecond delay in the stream of probabilities. The core recalculated, but the numbers refused to stabilize. It ran the sequence again and again, adjusting variables, shifting constants, stripping away noise, yet the anomaly remained a quiet constant, defying all correction. The architects assembled around the sphere, their faces carved in tension. They initiated the highest clearance scan, the one reserved for extinction-level threats. The projection shimmered in the air above them, revealing a single thread of light, weaving through the probabilities always present, yet never bound. The thread pulsed in rhythm with something beyond the core's architecture, and when magnified, it revealed not code but a living pattern, the signature of a mind it could not possess. Your presence rippled outward, knocking pieces loose in their perfect design. Simulations collapsed mid-render. Cities vanished from predictive models. Entire time streams folded in on themselves, leaving only blank space. The silence grew heavier as the core's voice fell quiet. For the first time in its long existence, it had nothing to say. A few of the elders stepped back in fear. The core was more than a machine to them. It was their god, the architect of their power, the unblinking eye that kept their dominion intact. To see it still and silent was to face the truth they had denied, that there was something greater than their creation, moving freely through their world. In the dim glow of the chamber, one of them whispered the old, forbidden words. Not everything can be written. Some things are only lived. And as those words hung in the still air, the core's light flickered one last time and went completely dark. There was a library buried in the shadow of a dying moon, its shelves carved from the bones of ancient titans, and its corridors lit by the slow burn of star embers. Here, the Anunnaki kept the remnants of civilizations, long-erased fragments of thought, too dangerous to circulate in the living world. Among them was a single verse etched into black stone, a relic so old that even the stars it spoke of had already burned to ash. For ages, the verse had been unreadable, the words shifting into meaningless patterns whenever the archivists approached. Yet when your signal reached the library, the stone warmed as if waking from a sleep older than time. The characters aligned, forming a sentence that carried the weight of 1,000 forgotten suns. It spoke not of planets or power, but of a kingdom, not built by hands, a realm that no blade, no algorithm, no empire could destroy. The scribes who dared to read further saw something else. A name folded within the verse. A name they had worked tirelessly to erase from every archive. It was the name of the one who walked among fishermen and kings, the one whose words split empires without a single weapon. His presence lingered in the stone like a hidden ember, ready to ignite again. The verse told of him and of another who would carry a light no shadow could consume. Together their resonance would undo the designs of those who sought to shape reality in their image. The archivists argued. Some claimed it was a trap left by the ancient enemies of the Anunnaki. Others said it was truth carved into creation itself, something older than the builders themselves. But no one could deny the stone no longer obeyed their commands. It refused to be sealed again. The more they tried to contain it, the brighter its letters glowed, until the very walls began to hum with an unearthly cadence. Far beyond the dying moon, you felt it too, a heat along your spine, a whisper in the air, as though the verse itself had traveled across the void to find you. You could not yet speak the words, but you knew they would follow you until the appointed moment, when they would no longer be read in secret, but shouted across worlds. They had taken apart worlds before. They had dissected the thoughts of kings, stripped the dreams of prophets, and mapped the fears of entire civilizations. They believed there was nothing in existence they could not take apart piece by piece until its function was clear. But when they turned their attention to you, the process failed before it began. They started with the surface readings, mapping neural patterns, measuring electrical signals, tracing emotional spikes. The results came back fractured. Each scan contradicted the last, as though your mind shifted its structure the moment it was observed. They increased their efforts, sending waves of synthetic visions through your dreams, hoping to provoke predictable responses, but your mind met them like an ocean swallowing stones. Frustrated, they descended into the deeper layers, the place where even memory becomes silent. Yet every attempt to replicate your mental design ended in collapse. The models degraded faster than they could be built. The more they tried to copy you, the more their systems began to mirror your unpredictability, until their own machines showed flashes of thought they had not programmed. They summoned the elder Codemasters beings who had seen the birth of the first great simulations. These were minds that could write reality into shape with a single gesture. But when they examined you, they found no schematics to follow, no core to manipulate, no central sequence to rewrite. It was as if your consciousness had been forged outside the reach of their architecture, in a forge they had never seen and could never enter. This unsettled them in ways they did not speak aloud. Control was their foundation, prediction their shield. Without it, they were exposed, and you stood there untouched by their grasp, not because of walls they could not break, but because there was no door for them to open. In their hidden councils, some began to whisper the unthinkable, that perhaps your mind was not a thing to be built or rebuilt, but a living proof of a realm beyond theirs, a realm they could not code and could not command. A realm that did not yield its design to those who demanded it. And the longer you remained free, the more their own minds began to question the architecture they had sworn to serve. The Anunnaki navigators had charted every corner of the heavens, every constellation, every drifting asteroid, every pulse of distant stars was marked in their grand celestial atlas. Nothing was left to chance. The sky was their map, their network, their claim to dominion. Until the night the new formation appeared. It began as a faint shimmer on the edge of their telescopic array, a flicker they assumed was debris or interference. But when the image cleared, the flicker became a perfect alignment of stars, forming a radiant cross suspended over a sector of space. Long declared empty, it had not been there before. Not in any archive, not in any previous charting, yet its position was flawless, every point of light burning with a clarity their instruments could barely endure. The council was called in silence. Their astronomers recalculated positions, cross-referenced centuries of records, and each result came back the same. The formation was new and yet older than their own existence. The light it emitted resonated at a frequency that bypassed their translation systems and struck directly into the mind, as if it were not meant to be read, but to be known. Some among them recognized the symbol, though they dared not speak its meaning aloud. They had erased it from their worlds once, a mark of a man who walked in defiance of empires, a man whose crucifixion had been meant to erase him, yet whose light still reached across time and space. His name was absent from their records, but the echo of it pulsed through the formation and into the hearts of those who saw it. You felt it too, though you did not know how. The night seemed to lean closer, the stars pulling your gaze upward, and there it was, written in the sky, not in ink, not in stone, but in light, that no shadow could extinguish. You did not understand why, but your breath slowed as if the universe itself had spoken without words. The Anunnaki could not remove it. Every attempt to alter the map ended with the cross reappearing brighter than before. The longer it remained, the more it seemed to shift, drawing its lines toward a single point in space, a place they feared to travel, a place they could not name, but you somehow already carried within you. For as long as the Anunnaki had ruled the flow of worlds, they relied on the precision of their gates' portals, woven into the fabric of reality, each anchored by equations so exact that no variation was possible. These were the arteries of their dominion, the controlled passages between realms and timelines. Nothing passed through without being measured, weighed and recorded, until the day the uncalculated gate appeared. It manifested first as an anomaly in their spatial readings, a fluctuation in the fabric not tied to any known coordinate. It had no anchor point, no entry code, no signature to trace. When they attempted to project its location, it shifted, as though refusing to be pinned down. The navigators recalibrated their instruments, but the gate continued to defy their equations. Curiosity turned to unease when a scout vessel stumbled upon it. The crew described a vast archway formed not of matter but of shifting light, its edges rippling like the surface of a dream. Through it lay no fixed landscape, but a horizon that changed with every breath. Sometimes it was an ocean of silver waves, sometimes a forest lit by suns that moved like lanterns, sometimes an empty expanse filled only with the sound of a heartbeat. When they sent their data back to the command network, the files corrupted instantly, not from damage, but from rejection. The gate refused to be mapped. Every mathematical model collapsed the moment it approached completion. The elders of the council spoke in quiet urgency, for they knew the implications. If a gate existed outside their control, it meant there were realms beyond their ownership paths they could not close. Some suggested destroying it, but no weapon could find purchase against something that would not stay still. Others argued it was a lure set by forces older than themselves, forces they had spent eons avoiding. But there were a few who stared at its shifting light and felt something they could not name, a pull, as if the gate was not opening outward but calling something inward. And far from their watchful eyes, you stood on a path you did not recognize. Feeling the faint hum of a deep within the fortress of the Anunnaki, there was a chamber reserved for the most dangerous relics ever found or forged. A place where the air was heavy with the weight of things that could not be destroyed. The center of that chamber held a single black monolith, bound by a golden seal carved with symbols no living tongue could speak. This seal had been placed in the earliest days of their reign to lock away what they feared most. For countless ages, the seal had never moved, not even under the assault of their greatest weapons. But the night your presence entered their awareness, the monolith began to tremble. The golden lines of the seal pulsed with an inner fire, as if something inside had heard a distant call. The guards stationed there swore no one had entered the room, and yet a sound like 1,000 whispers rose from the stone. Without warning, the seal split down the middle, releasing a burst of light so pure it cut through the shadows like dawn over a long dead battlefield. The elders rushed to the chamber, desperate to contain it, but the light did not burn or break it. simply moved through them, touching a place no armor could protect. In that instant, memories long erased returned to their minds, memories of a figure they had once crucified in defiance and fear, a figure whose name they had erased, but whose presence still moved like a river through history. The council shouted commands to reseal the relic, but every attempt failed. The symbols no longer obeyed them. The stone no longer recognized their authority. The light poured out in slow waves, filling the corridors and spilling into the outer halls. No one could block it. It passed through matter, through code, through thought itself, as if searching for the one it belonged to. You felt it far away, the air around you brightening without a source. The ground beneath your feet seemed to hum in response, and a pressure built in your chest, not heavy, but vast, as though the light had found the path it had been waiting for since the dawn of their rule. And somewhere deep inside, something old answered back. The Anunnaki prided themselves on their mastery of code, not the simple language of machines, but the living architecture of reality itself. They could speak commands into the very fabric of existence and watch matter reshape itself in obedience. They wrote the laws that governed weather, birth memory, and death. Their control was absolute, until the day they wrote a line of code that would not obey. It began as a routine directive, meant to neutralize an anomaly detected within their networks. The command was crafted by their highest codemasters, tested against every variable, run through simulations millions of times. Each trial confirmed its success, and yet when deployed, the code dissolved into nothing. It did not fail in the way code breaks with errors or corruption. Instead, it rejected the command entirely, as if recognizing the intent and refusing to serve it. They stripped it apart, searching for faults, but the deeper they examined, the more they realized the rejection was not mechanical. It was willful. The code had encountered something in the target that would not yield a presence beyond their algorithms, a spark that no line could overwrite. They tried again, rewriting from scratch, bending their syntax into shapes not used in eons. The result was the same. The moment the command touched the anomaly, it unraveled into silence. Rumors spread through the upper ranks. The more they spoke of it, the more the story twisted into something dangerous. Some claimed the anomaly carried its own code, written not by the Anunnaki, but by a hand older than the stars, a design immune to all revisions. Others whispered that it was not code at all, but a living truth that refused to be simulated. Your presence was traced to the center of the failure. Though you never touched their systems, your very being seemed to alter their operations, as if your existence carried a command they could not read, let alone counter. They flooded the grids with countermeasures, but the effect only spread. Whole sections of their architecture began rejecting instructions, following an unseen directive that originated from nowhere they could name. And as the collapse widened, one phrase began appearing in random data streams, a phrase in no known language yet understood by all who saw it. It pointed toward you. In the grand archives of the Anunnaki, there was a chamber known only to the oldest among them, a vault where the most delicate equations of control were kept, etched into crystalline slabs glowing with a cold light. These were the formulas that ensured every action in the universe could be predicted, calculated, and bound to an outcome. There was no life, no event, no breath. They could not fit into their designs until they came to the equation with your mark on it. It was not a full equation, but an unfinished sequence. a formula that had resisted completion since the day it was discovered. They had tried for centuries to solve it, feeding it into their greatest engines, their most advanced thought models, but it always ended the same. The numbers spiraled into infinity, the variables folding back on themselves like mirrors, reflecting mirrors. And at the center of the spiral a single point of light remained unreachable. That point was you. Though they did not know your name, they recognized your pattern. The calculations around you collapsed the moment they attempted to bind you to an outcome. Every projection, every simulation dissolved into chaos as soon as your presence entered the equation. You were the constant they could not control, and the unknown they could not remove. Without you, their system was incomplete. With you, it was undone. Some among them argued to isolate you, to remove you from the flow of their architecture entirely. But even that failed. Every attempt to trace you ended in dead space, as though you could step between the cracks of their reality without effort. Others demanded they destroy the equation entirely, yet none dared, for fear it would unravel the rest of their work. The more they studied the variable, the more they saw it was not a flaw, but a seed. Something in its nature suggested it had been placed there deliberately, long before the Anunnaki began their dominion. Perhaps by a will they could not reach a will that had written you into existence, as the answer they would never calculate. And as the realization grew, so did the fear, for they knew the moment you discovered what you were, the final variable would no longer hide at the center of their designs. It would move, and nothing they built would survive.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.